I was sitting alone in my apartment staring at my phone screen. My girlfriend Megan just posted on Facebook, "Sometimes you have to walk away from toxic men." Most guys would be furious. Most guys would call her demand answers. But I smiled, hit like, and commented, "I agree." Everyone thought I had lost my mind. But I knew something they did not. Before we begin, tell me where you are watching from. Hit like and subscribe. To understand why I smiled when called toxic, let me explain. My name is Lonnie, and this story begins 3 years before that Facebook post. I met Megan at a coffee shop in Austin, Texas. It was one of those lazy Saturday afternoons when the world feels like it is moving in slow motion. I was sitting at a corner table, laptop open, trying to debug some code for a project at work. I am a software engineer, the kind of guy who finds peace in solving problems that most people would find boring. She walked in wearing a yellow sundress, her brown hair catching the afternoon light through the window. I noticed her, sure, but I went back to my screen. I am not the type to approach strangers. Never have been. Then it happened. She was walking past my table with a large iced coffee in her hand when she tripped on her own feet. The cup went flying, and suddenly my laptop, my notes, and half my shirt were covered in cold coffee. She gasped, her face turning bright red. "Oh my God, I am so sorry. I am such a klutz. Please let me buy you a new coffee. Actually, let me pay for your dry cleaning. Actually, is your laptop okay?" I looked at the mess, then at her panicked expression, and I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because her genuine distress was somehow endearing. "It is fine," I said. "The laptop survived. I might need that coffee, though." That is how we started talking. She insisted on buying me a replacement drink, then sat down to make sure my laptop was really working. 3 hours later, we were still talking. She told me about her job in marketing, her dreams of traveling the world, her fear of spiders. I told her about my quiet life, my coding projects, my collection of vintage vinyl records. Megan was everything I was not. She was loud where I was quiet. She was spontaneous where I was planned. She was a burst of color in my grayscale world. For the first year, everything was perfect. She would drag me out of my apartment on weekends for adventures I never would have chosen myself. Hiking trails I did not know existed. Hole-in-the-wall, restaurants with food that changed my life. Concerts for bands I had never heard of but learned to love. In return, I gave her stability. I was the calm in her chaos, the anchor when her emotions ran wild. I listened when she needed to vent about her coworkers. I held her when she cried about family drama. I cooked her favorite meals when she had rough days. After a year of dating, she suggested we move in together. "We spend every night at your place anyway," she said, with that smile that always made me say yes. "Let us make it official." I found us a 2-bedroom apartment in a nice neighborhood. I signed the lease under my name because my credit score was better. I paid 70% of the rent because she said her marketing job did not pay as well as my engineering salary. I did not mind. When you love someone, you want to take care of them. Over the next 2 years, I gave her everything I could. I paid for our dinners out, our groceries, our streaming subscriptions. When her car broke down, I drove her to work for 3 months, while she saved up for repairs. When she needed money for a new wardrobe, because her job required professional attire, I handed over my credit card. When she wanted to take online courses to advance her career, I covered the fees. I never kept count, but looking back, I must have given her close to $5,000 in loans that she never mentioned repaying. And honestly, I never asked. I thought that is what partners do. But about 6 months before the Facebook incident, something shifted. Megan started coming home later from work. She said there were new projects, important clients' deadlines that required overtime. I believed her. Why would I not? She began mentioning a new coworker. His name was Derek. "Derek is so funny," she would say at dinner. "Derek has the best ideas in meetings. Derek really knows how to dress." I smiled and nodded. I was not the jealous type. I trusted her. Then came the small changes that I tried to ignore. She would be texting late at night, giggling at her phone screen. When I asked who she was talking to, she would say, "Just work stuff," and angle the screen away from me. She stopped reaching for my hand when we walked together. She started sleeping on the far edge of the bed as if my presence was an inconvenience. One night, I asked if everything was okay with us. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, something between annoyance and pity. "You worry too much, Lonnie," she said. "Not everything is about you." I apologized. I told myself I was being paranoid. I convinced myself that every couple goes through phases like this. But the distance between us kept growing, and I did not know how to close it. The changes in Megan became more obvious with each passing week. She started criticizing everything about me. My clothes were boring. My job was just sitting at a computer all day. My idea of a fun Friday night, which was cooking dinner and watching a movie together, was pathetic. "I should want to go out," she said. "I should want to dance, to drink, to be seen." "You used to love movie nights," I reminded her once. "That was before I realized there was more to life than your couch." I tried to adapt. I bought new clothes in styles she pointed out. I suggested clubs and bars, even though the loud music and crowds made my skin crawl. I tried to be more spontaneous, more exciting, more whatever it was she wanted me to be. Nothing worked. If anything, my efforts seemed to irritate her more. "You are trying too hard," she said one night when I came home with concert tickets for a band she liked. "It feels desperate. I could not win. Being myself was not enough. Trying to change was too much. I was trapped in a maze with no exit." The name Derek came up more and more frequently. She would compare us constantly, always in ways that made me feel small. "Derek knows how to have a good time. Derek does not overthink everything. Derek actually has ambition." I met Derek once at Megan's company holiday party. She insisted I come, which surprised me since she had stopped inviting me to work events months earlier. I understood why the moment we arrived. Derek was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of easy confidence that comes from never having been told no. He wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than my entire closet. His smile was perfect. His handshake was firm. His eyes, when they landed on me, held a flicker of something that looked a lot like contempt. Throughout the entire evening, Megan stayed by his side. She laughed at his jokes, touched his arm when she talked, leaned in close when he whispered something in her ear. I stood there like a ghost, invisible and unnecessary. On the drive home, I finally asked the question that had been burning in my chest. "What is going on with you and Derek?" Megan exploded. "Are you serious right now? I cannot even have friends without you getting jealous." "This is exactly what is wrong with you, Lonnie. You are controlling. You are suffocating. You do not trust me, which means you do not love me." I tried to explain that I was just asking, that I was not accusing her of anything, that I was worried about us. "You should be worried about yourself," she snapped. "About why you are so insecure. About why you cannot just let me live my life." I apologized. I always apologized. After that night, things got worse. Megan started telling me that I was the problem in our relationship. She said my questions about her whereabouts were controlling. My concerns about her late nights were signs of jealousy. My need for communication was emotional manipulation. I started to believe her. Maybe I was too clingy. Maybe I did ask too many questions. Maybe I was the toxic one. I read articles about controlling behavior, about emotional abuse, about unhealthy relationship patterns. I examined every interaction, every feeling, trying to find the flaw in myself that was pushing her away. I stopped asking where she was going. I stopped waiting up for her. I stopped expecting affection or attention. I made myself smaller and smaller, hoping that if I took up less space, she would be happy. She was not. "You do not even care anymore," she accused one evening. "You do not ask about my day. You do not seem interested in my life. You are so cold, Lonnie." I could not understand. When I asked questions, I was controlling. When I stopped asking, I was cold. The rules kept changing, and I could not keep up. Kyle, my best friend since college, called me one Saturday. We had not talked in months because Megan did not like him. She said he was a bad influence, that he did not respect our relationship, that real friends would not try to take me away from my girlfriend. "Man, I barely recognize you anymore," Kyle said. "You never come out. You never call. What is going on?" I started to tell him that everything was fine, the automatic response I had trained myself to give. But something cracked. I told him about the distance, the criticism, the constant feeling that I was failing. "That does not sound like a relationship, Lonnie. That sounds like a prison." Megan walked in while I was on the phone. She heard Kyle's voice, heard me talking about our problems. Her face twisted into something ugly. After I hung up, she gave me an ultimatum: Kyle or her. If I really loved her, I would distance myself from people who were trying to destroy us. I chose her. I stopped returning Kyle's calls. I told myself it was temporary, that once things got better with Megan, I would reconnect with my friends. Things did not get better. My mom called around the same time. She said I sounded different, tired, sad. She asked if I wanted to come home for a weekend just to get away and clear my head. Megan overheard that conversation too. She accused my family of never liking her, of trying to turn me against her, of being jealous of our relationship. I started calling home less. I made excuses for missed family dinners, skipped holidays, kept my conversations with my parents short and surface level. I told myself I was protecting my relationship. In reality, I was losing everyone who actually cared about me. I had never felt so alone in my life. The truth revealed itself on a quiet Saturday night. Megan said she was going to a co-worker's birthday party and would be home late. I had grown used to these excuses, had learned not to question them. I just nodded and said I hoped she had fun. After she left, I noticed her iPad on the couch. She had forgotten it, which was unusual. Megan never went anywhere without her devices. I was not planning to look. I had spent months convincing myself that I was the problem, that my suspicions were just my insecurity talking. But then, the screen lit up with a notification. It was a message from Derek. The preview showed enough to make my blood run cold. "I miss you. Cannot wait until you move in with me." My hands were shaking as I picked up the iPad. Megan and I had set up our devices with the same passcode, back when we trusted each other, back when we had nothing to hide. I typed in the numbers and opened her messages. What I found destroyed every excuse I had made for her. 6 months of conversations with Derek. 6 months of lies, betrayal, and planning. They had been together since shortly after he joined her company. The late nights at work were actually dates. The business trips were romantic getaways. Every time she told me I was paranoid, she was actively proving my fears were justified. But the messages that hurt the most were not about their relationship. They were about me. Megan had been complaining about me to Derek for months. She called me boring, needy, pathetic. She mocked my career, my hobbies, my appearance. She laughed about how easy I was to manipulate, how I paid for everything and never questioned anything. "He is so desperate for love that he will believe anything," she had written. It is almost sad. Derek's responses were no better. He encouraged her to stay with me a little longer, to keep milking me for money and stability until she was ready to leave. They joked about how clueless I was, how they were playing me like a fool. The worst part was reading her exit strategy. Megan did not want to break up with me. She wanted me to break up with her. If I ended things, she would be the victim. She could tell everyone that I was the bad guy, that she had tried so hard, but I just was not good enough. Her reputation would stay intact. Her conscience would stay clean. She had been deliberately pushing me away, creating fights, making me feel crazy, all so that I would eventually give up and set her free. I sat in that apartment for hours, reading message after message, feeling something inside me shift. The sadness was there, yes. The betrayal cut deep. But underneath it all, there was a strange sense of clarity. I was not crazy. I was not controlling. I was not toxic. I had been manipulated by someone I loved, and I had almost lost myself in the process. My first instinct was to confront her the moment she walked through the door, to throw the iPad at her feet, to scream, to demand explanations. But I stopped myself. If I did that, she would turn it around. She would accuse me of invading her privacy, of being obsessive, of proving her point about my controlling nature. She was good at spinning stories. She had been doing it for months. I needed to be smarter. I took screenshots of every conversation, every plan, every cruel joke they made at my expense. I saved them to my cloud storage, then to a flash drive. Evidence. Protection. Then I started thinking strategically. The apartment was in my name. I paid the majority of the bills. Legally, I was in a strong position. I just needed to handle this carefully. I called Kyle the next morning. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he said the words I needed to hear. I am here for you, whatever you need. I spent the next 2 weeks pretending everything was normal. I smiled when Megan criticized me. I nodded when she compared me to Derek. I acted like the naive, desperate boyfriend she thought I was. But behind the scenes, I was preparing. I talked to my landlord about my options if my living situation changed. I separated my finances, making sure my accounts were secure. I gathered every receipt, every bank statement, every piece of documentation that proved what I had contributed to our life together. Then came the Facebook post. Megan had been building her narrative publicly for weeks. Vague posts about growing apart from people who do not support you. Quotes about knowing your worth and walking away from negativity. She was setting the stage, making sure everyone would be on her side when the breakup became official. When she posted, "Sometimes you have to walk away from toxic men," I knew it was almost time. I looked at my phone, read the comments from her friends, offering support, praising her strength, condemning the unnamed man who was apparently ruining her life. They had no idea they were being fed lies. I hit the like button. Then, I wrote a simple comment: I agree. Within minutes, the confusion started. Megan's friends were asking what was happening. Why would her boyfriend agree that she should leave toxic men? Was this a joke? Was he having a breakdown? Megan was furious. She called me immediately, demanding to know what I was doing. "Just agreeing with you," I said calmly. "You should definitely walk away from toxic men. I support that completely." She hung up on me. A day later, she posted again. A picture of packed suitcases with the caption, "Start walking." This was her power move. She expected me to panic, to beg, to show everyone how desperate and unhinged I was. That would confirm her story. That would make me the villain. Instead, I commented again. This time, I was more direct. "I completely support your decision to leave. Derek is waiting for you after all. By the way, the apartment is in my name and I pay the rent. You have 1 week to collect your things. I genuinely hope you find what you are looking for." I attached a single screenshot. Not enough to humiliate her completely, but enough to show that I knew the truth. A message where she called me pathetic, followed by a heart from Derek. The reactions were immediate. Her friends started asking questions she could not answer. People who had believed her story began to doubt. The comments turned from supportive to skeptical. Megan deleted the post, but it was too late. Screenshots had been taken. The narrative she had carefully constructed was crumbling. She called me crying, begging for a chance to explain. She said it was not what it looked like, that I was taking things out of context, that she still loved me. I did not argue. I did not yell. I just repeated what I had written online. "You have 1 week. I wish you well." Derek disappeared the moment the drama went public. He wanted a secret affair, not a scandal. Megan was left with nothing. No backup boyfriend. No sympathetic audience. No easy exit. She moved out 5 days later in silence. I watched her load her car with the belongings she had accumulated over 2 years. She did not look at me. I did not look away. When her car pulled out of the parking lot, I stood in the empty apartment and let myself feel everything I had been holding back. The grief for what we had been. The anger for what she had done. The relief that it was finally over. I had been called toxic. I had agreed. And in doing so, I had taken back my power. The first few weeks after Megan left were harder than I expected. Even when you know a relationship was poisonous, your heart does not forget overnight. I would wake up reaching for someone who was not there. I would see something funny and turn to share it only to remember I was alone. The apartment felt too big, too quiet. Every corner held a memory of what we used to be before everything went wrong. I found myself wondering if there was something I could have done differently, some way I could have saved us. But I also knew that thinking was a trap. I could not save a relationship where only one person was fighting for it. Kyle came over nearly every day that first month. He never pushed me to talk, never offered cliches about time healing wounds. He just sat with me, watched terrible movies, made sure I ate something other than instant noodles. "You know none of this was your fault, right?" he said one night. I was starting to believe him. My mom flew in for a long weekend. She did not ask questions about what happened. She just hugged me for a long time, then went into my kitchen and started cooking all my favorite childhood meals. My dad called every few days, keeping the conversations light, reminding me that home was always there when I needed it. I had pushed these people away to protect a relationship that was destroying me. They welcomed me back without a single word of blame. That taught me something important about love. Real love does not require you to sacrifice everything. Real love does not ask you to become someone else. Real love waits even when you are lost and opens its arms when you find your way back. Slowly, I started rebuilding. I picked up my guitar again, the one Megan said was too loud, and collected dust in my closet for months. I was rusty at first fingers, stumbling over chords they used to know by heart. But each day I got a little better, and each song I played felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I started reading again, books I actually enjoyed, instead of whatever Megan thought I should be reading. I went for runs in the early morning when the city was still waking up and the air felt fresh with possibility. I reached out to old friends I had neglected. Most of them understood. A few did not, and that was okay too. I was learning that not every relationship is meant to last forever, and that losing some people can make room for better ones. 6 months later, I barely recognized my own life. Not because everything was perfect, but because I was finally living on my own terms. I still thought about Megan sometimes. Not with anger or longing, just with a kind of distant sadness. I hoped she found whatever she was searching for, even if she had looked for it in the wrong places. I hoped she learned something from the wreckage, the same way I had. But I no longer blamed myself for her choices. Her betrayal was about her, not about me. My only mistake was staying too long, loving too hard, and forgetting that I deserved to be loved in return. One afternoon, almost a year after the breakup, I found myself at the same coffee shop where we first met. I had avoided it for months, but that day, I walked in without thinking. I ordered my usual, sat at a corner table, and opened my laptop. Life had come full circle in the strangest way. A woman walked past my table. She stumbled slightly, and for a heart-stopping second, I thought history was about to repeat itself. But she caught her balance, laughed at herself, and kept walking. I smiled and went back to my work. The thing is, some people walk into your life and break you open. They show you parts of yourself you did not know existed, including the parts that can survive anything. Megan did that for me. Not in the way she intended, but in the way that mattered. I learned that my kindness was not weakness. My quiet nature was not boring. My willingness to love deeply was not desperation. Those were gifts, and they deserve to be given to someone who would cherish them. I also learned that agreeing with someone who calls you toxic is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do. Not because you believe them, but because you refuse to fight on their terms. You refuse to become the villain in their story. You step aside and let them walk, knowing that the truth always finds its way to light. So, if you are out there feeling like you are not enough for someone who keeps changing the rules, let me tell you this. Maybe you are not the problem. Maybe you are just giving your love to someone who does not know how to hold it. And when they try to paint you as the villain, you do not have to fight back. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is smile, agree, and watch them walk right out of your life. Because the door they slam on their way out, that is the same door that opens to your freedom. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to make you the bad guy, but you knew the truth? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one, and I know there are people watching right now who need to hear that they are not alone. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more than you know. And if you have not already subscribed to this channel, so you never miss another story, share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of this community. Whatever you are going through right now, I hope you remember your worth. I hope you know that better days are coming. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.